guys, welcome back to the other side where we discuss trials, triumphs, and everything in between because that's where the magic lies. But today I have something special or someone special. I'm here again with Andrea Vargas. She is a licensed family and marriage therapist, counselor. But today we're going to talk about connection because I have been watching some documentaries on cults and these people in these crazy relationships and all of these different aspects of life that people fall into. And really, the core problem that I see is that they're aching for connection. So I brought Andrea here to help us with that conversation today.
Hello.
So welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. It's always fun to have you because we have such good natural dialogue.
Yes.
And I think we feed off of each other well. And I like where you take it, because you always add that spice of, um, I don't know, even just us, right? As Latinos and me, our discussion last time being fourth generation. I think even we don't realize at times that even that's a connection we kind of need.
Yeah.
And if we're lacking, we don't realize it if we weren't given it, but it's just embedded in our DNA, I believe, right? Would you agree?
Yes. And I think connection is also connection to our culture, right? And like we
Mhm.
talked about last time, how do you identify as a Latina being fourth generation? And that in itself alone is connection not only with yourself, but with your culture and your heritage. And we're all seeking that connection at the end of the day, regardless of what the connection is.
Right. So even if we don't have it as much as some people, right? That just the fact that we're able to have the freedom to seek the answers, to find the connection so we don't end up in crazy relationships or, cults. I mean, I have to say it again. I don't know if you've watched those documentaries, but there's cults alive today and they are thriving.
Yes, actually, I recently saw, now that you bring it up, I saw Twin Flames.
Oh, I did see that. Girl.
That was definitely interesting.
Insane.
Yes.
I mean, these people allow themselves to be abused and manipulated, and in turn, allow their children to be abused sometimes. And I mean, it's just sickening and psycho. And you can't believe that it's happening in 2024 with all of the information that we have available to us.
But not only that, but I think also all of the financial ripoff that happens with it, right? Because they
Yes,
have you pay into it and take courses.
they lose
And
homes.
in seeing the documentary though, you also get to see how these people that they prey on believe the stuff that they're being told and fed.
And they've
It's really
lived a
sad.
whole
Yeah.
life. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not children. It's not
Yeah.
like they're
They're
being
adults.
brainwashed.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they've lived a whole life in this world and which proves how really harsh this world could be too.
Yeah.
For
And
people to be so desperate to be looking for a community to help them thrive, right? Because that's really what they're promised at the beginning.
yes, and I think that, with the connection, it also shows that with the internet and with social media and with dating apps, we think that we are connecting and we're seeking connection. But at the end of the day, how can you have that connection when everything is so fast paced?
Yeah,
Because connection doesn't happen within minutes. It takes time
right.
to build connection.
Yes, and they believe they know each other because they emailed each other a few times. They went on a few dates. I mean, they get married and hey, I watch every sick show that's on TV. I have to
You're
admit it.
addicted.
I'm addicted. But my thing is people, right? And the way people think and the way
Hmm.
they move.
Yeah.
And
Human
so
behavior.
human behavior. And that is like the deep, dark seated sickening, like sickness that's out there, but human behavior and these people in these relationships, I've seen a few of those, they meet on a dating app, they get married, they have no idea who they're married to.
But I think that a lot of it has to do with the culture that's in front in front of the screen with us, right? We have like 90 Day Fiance,
Mhm.
we have The Bachelor and The Bachelorette.
Mhm.
Like you're not
Blind date, yeah.
how
Oh,
do you build connection when you are dating how many women is
multiple
it
people, yes.
at the same time?
Yeah.
Like in reality, you would not be
In
okay.
weeks. They
Yeah,
make it seem like it's even months, but in reality it's weeks.
I I I don't subscribe to those shows, so I don't watch them, so I don't know the details, but I just know that you're there and with 20 women or whatever it is. And so
Mm.
how do you really build connection?
Girl, I know the details because I knew one of the producers
Oh,
for
really?
The Bachelorette.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah. No, it
Yeah.
wasn't nice. She couldn't stand it. She, like, wanted to leave because the manipulation that even goes on in those shows
Yeah, and it,
to create the drama. They
yeah,
don't
reality is not
feed
reality.
them. No, they keep them drunk and unfed, and
Really?
oh, yeah. Yeah.
Unfed,
Yeah.
really?
Well, they're
That's trauma in
drinking, right?
itself.
They're young. They're in their 20s, so
Oh, yeah,
it's a
they're
free
trying to stay
party at a
fed.
mansion. So, really, they don't wanna eat, they wanna drink, and but then once they're drunk, then it's like, "Hey, she said this,"
That's
and
when the
they
fun ensues.
Uh-huh,
Fun.
uh-huh, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So, yeah, even the reality is definitely not reality,
Can I
but people
interject
do.
one quick thing
Sure.
really quick? Since we're on the subject of both reality TV shows and, connection,
Mhm.
what about that show where it's called Love Is Blind, right? Where they
Yep.
don't see each other,
Yeah.
right? But yet they have all of this time to make these connections technically. Do you feel like they're creating connections there without having that visual element? Or do you still feel like it's the same thing where they just don't have the ability to really connect the way they should?
I don't think they have enough time to connect the way
Okay.
they should. I mean, you still have to see someone in the eyes, I believe, to have a true connection. You can possibly make an emotional connection, but when you're in that type of closed environment, you're not living in the real world. So you're living in this fantasy already to make this connection. That's my opinion.
Mm.
What do you think, Andre?
Well, it's like texting somebody, right?
Mm
Because
hmm. Mm hmm.
oftentimes you think you're looking at their picture, but how do you know it's an accurate picture?
Mm hmm.
So like you text back and forth and you build this emotional connection and then you meet the person and you're like, yeah, maybe not.
Because the reality
Yeah.
is there still has to be an
Be like that
attraction.
physical connection. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
the visual is a big part of it, though.
Yeah, as
I
much
just
as
wanna
we
agree.
wanna deny the fact that it was so funny, I was at a business event, and one of the brokers got up there and he says, "Honestly," and it's so funny, I thought about it just this morning, he said, "Look, if you're out of shape, get in shape. People wanna do business with people who look good." You just think at first, you're like, "That sucks," but it's true. It's true. You're not gonna come tell me that you're working hard and you're out there and you're hustling. If you're totally out of shape, you're gonna kinda think like, "I don't know if you're really doing much out there," you know?
But I think it depends, right? Because I think that we also live in a society that's fixated on looks and the way that we look and fitness, but that is all very superficial because there are people that are very fit, that work out, that eat healthy, that can have other health issues that don't allow for like the fit look, right? And
Absolutely.
there's like thyroid issues, there's autoimmune
Absolutely.
disease, there's
But
so
it
many other
doesn't change the
things.
fact that we live in a superficial world.
Yeah.
As much as they wanna celebrate being heavy and they're trying to change that, but I mean, it is what it is. It's funny too because I mean, not to get totally off subject, but I was at another event and I forgot where we were, but they were talking about color, race. It was Toastmasters. And they said if we had lived in a world with no color. But I was like, but we still live in a world with people, right? Who want to segregate anyway. So you'll have short people with short people, tall people with tall people. So they may not have color, but they'll still
Find
Find a
another
way.
way.
find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But back on connection. Let's get back to that because, we want to help people, right? What do you suggest would be a good way to start? Because we should start in the home and within ourselves. And I guess first we have to start with ourselves.
Yeah. And something that I always say, especially culturally for our culture, is we're very united but very disconnected.
Mhm.
And so what that means is, or how I interpret it, is that we are very family oriented and family is first. And we get together every weekend and we may not be in the best of terms, but there we are every weekend
Mhm.
because it's family and we hang out and we support each other. But we're very disconnected emotionally, right? Because we don't talk about emotions, because we
Right.
don't connect on a deeper level.
Right.
It's very superficial. And how do we connect? Through chisme and through criticism,
Yeah.
right? So
It's so
you're at a
true.
family gathering and you're sitting there and you're cousins are criticizing you, or you're criticizing your cousins or your tias are like, "Oh, mija, you've gained so much weight." And
Yeah,
it's like,
or you're capping on each other.
yeah, or that's how we connect,
Mhm.
right? Is through making fun of our insecurities,
Mhm.
and then that becomes your nickname.
Mhm. Yeah, it's crazy, I
And
know.
so how do we start to build connection within our own family system?
Mhm.
And that really takes a lot within us because we have to start connecting with ourselves.
Yeah.
And how do we connect with ourselves, right? And we live in a society and where they've done a really good job at disconnecting us from ourselves.
Mhm.
And that is the
Mhm.
connection of mind and body,
Mhm.
right? And I think that something that we can start doing is how do we connect our mind and body? Because oftentimes we are very disconnected from our body, which is where we carry our emotions.
Right.
And we intellectualize our emotions. And so we try to rationalize events that we've experienced that have caused trauma that we don't see as traumatizing because when we experience certain things, we normalize them because they happen to us
Mhm.
and we just have to, grab ourselves by the bootstraps and then
Yeah.
keep going.
That's what happens with a lot of the poor young girls, like date
Hmm.
rape and stuff,
Yeah.
They're embarrassed, they don't want anybody to know,
There's
they
victim
blame
shaming.
themselves, they
Yeah.
don't wanna get victim shamed or called liars or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be, and yeah, suck
And
it
if
up,
it's
buttercup,
and if
and
it's difficult for women to come forward for those instances, and it happens to men as well, right?
yes,
So
yes,
if it's
thank you for
difficult
pointing
for
that out.
women to come forward because of the victim shaming, imagine how much more shaming it is for men to come forward with that. Which
Absolutely.
is why a lot of men don't come forward and talk about their sexual abuse.
Yes.
But we see it a lot. I mean, unfortunately, we saw it in the Catholic Church, right? Where
Mhm.
a lot of the victims were boys.
Mhm.
It wasn't just boys, but the majority of the victims were
Yeah. Oh,
boys.
yeah. Yes, because it
Yeah.
was just boys.
And I'm pretty sure that for a long time they didn't come forward because it was very shaming. Because
Right.
you're, as a boy, you're supposed to be able to defend yourself, but you're also a child. A child isn't supposed to be able to defend themselves.
Well, and
We're
that's
supposed to protect the
well, and
children.
who are you supposed to trust the most, right?
Yeah,
Go to the
exactly.
policeman or the priest,
Hmm.
go to church. You go to
Especially, yeah,
church and that's where you're getting hurt. Talk about being confused.
yeah.
And then you don't know. You're little. You
It's a
think your
power
parents will
dynamic,
be
right?
yeah, disappointed at you for talking badly about the pastor or the priest or
Hmm.
whatever. Yeah, awful. Yeah. So
So,
okay, so starting with ourself and our families. I know personally when I started healing
hmm
and learning, it was very difficult
hmm
putting boundaries with my family because, like you said, it's cultural. I mean, we
hmm
grew up. I remember my son, he was probably 4, and he'd be like, "Oh, you have big ears," because he was trying to fit in. And like you said, that's how we would connect. And we called it capping on each other, pointing out our flaws. And so being that that's how we were raised and that's how we grew up, and then it was kinda like, "Well, no, it's not funny anymore. We
yep,
have to speak nicely to each other. We should only say kind things." And then it's like, "Stupid, like, what's wrong with you? Like, whatever," and then you get that crap, and
hmm
and you're more aware, so you're more sensitive. So even that's like frustrating and painful because you're just like, why can't they just be freaking nice? Like, why
yeah.
can't we be nice to each
And
other?
sometimes our very first bullies are our parents
Mm,
or our
interesting.
siblings, right?
Mhm,
And
usually the
that's
siblings
that's how we
are
learn
true.
to interact with each other.
Yeah.
And then we get out into the real world and as kids, you take it out into the world and that's where bullies are created and
That made me
usually
so sad to
yeah.
hear our parents, and not mine, but to think about that, like,
Hmm.
ugh, and
And
it's
and I don't think that they intentionally do it, right? Because we don't know what we don't know.
mhm,
And so, but if that's the way that they were raised and, we continue those cycles, that's what
mhm,
happens because oftentimes, what is bullying? It's verbal
yeah,
abuse,
yeah,
and oftentimes physical abuse,
mhm,
emotional abuse. So all of that and that that is bullying. That is what you consider bullying, but we
right,
don't see it that way when it comes to our parents.
yeah,
Because as children, we're supposed to respect our elders and respect our parents. And so a lot of us were raised on
mm,
fear, shame, and guilt.
mhm, mhm, the
And
guilt's
so,
a big one too.
yeah, and the
Yeah,
fear, right? And what at the end of the day, what is anxiety? It's
yeah.
fear of the unknown and fear of the future. And so we have an entire society that runs on anxiety.
Well, and then being raised Catholic, I mean, talk
Yeah.
about guilt, everything you're going to hell, so
Yeah, and
it's
religion
very
is a big part of it, right? Like
yeah,
religion definitely allows you to connect with your spirituality, but it doesn't allow you to connect mind and body.
right.
And so we they go hand in hand. We
Yeah.
can't have one without the other.
Mhm.
And religion is very fear-based.
Mhm.
Very
Mhm.
much fear-based. Like for everything, you're going to go to hell.
Mhm.
At least, in most religions. I know
Yes.
some religions that don't believe in hell, but at the end of the day, there's other fear tactics
Right, right. Yeah. They're
to
good at
keep you
that.
on check.
Yes, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting because we talk about cults, right? And that's to the extreme. But everybody is trying to what's the word I'm looking for? Recruit, right?
Mhm.
In some way or form, whether it's for me, my foundation, right? I want people to come and fall into that and love it as much as I do and want to help as much as I do. So of course I'm trying to get people excited about it. And whether it's a multi-level marketing or how can somebody really strengthen their mind and their soul connection to see those things a little more clearly and to not fall into like every little group or any group. What would you suggest they do to start strengthening their connection with themselves?
And given that I'm a therapist, I clearly believe in the work because I've done the work, but I'm also learning to decolonize my therapy practice and the way that I look at therapy, and also starting to connect with the way that our ancestors did a lot of this, right? Because I think that when religion was brought into our countries, and a lot of countries have been colonized, I think that they very much um try to do away with our beliefs and the way that we healed and our practices. So how do we re-indigenize our healing practices, right?
So is that what you mean by decolonizing it? By bringing back healing practices such as what?
Such as círculos, pláticas, right? Because I
What
think
is that
that
exactly?
like talking
Oh
circles
yeah,
where you
yeah,
just
yeah.
talk,
Oh, I
right?
love it.
Because
Yes.
and we have that. I mean, when I go to Mexico, my mom's from a small town,
Mhm.
and like, if you go out to get, like, your morning ingredients for breakfast, like,
Mhm.
you stop and you talk to somebody for, like, 5
Yes.
minutes or 10 minutes, it's very communal, and
Yes.
it's community at the end of the day.
Right.
So I think one of the things that we need to bring back is community,
Yes.
because that's where connection happens, is
Absolutely.
through community, and many of us come to this country, and we come alone without any other family members, and so we become very isolated, and we
Mhm.
also know that this society is very individualistic.
Mhm.
And so, how do we bring community back? How do we build community within our communities
Mhm.
so that we can support each other, because we can't do it alone?
Right.
Not when you're working two jobs and
Mhm.
have kids and have a list of to do things. So, how do we build community to support each other so that we do have time to connect to others so that we can connect to ourselves?
Yeah. I like that. And it's interesting because I am an entrepreneur. I'm in real estate and I work home alone.
Hmm.
I'm out on occasion, but for the most part I'm home. And but I do have my community.
Hmm.
I'm blessed enough to have just but it really I would say to start, they have to want it. You have to
Yeah.
seek, right? They have to decide that they want something different and they have to decide that they want a community because they have to put their feelers out. Like just saying it out loud puts your feelers out and it's the energy. It's the energy. It starts coming. And I was blessed enough to find a great community. They're called Share. If anybody's interested, feel free to message me. We meet in Newport once a month. And it's just a wonderful women's circle. We go,
Hmm.
we get the word, we get to talk to each other and network and just, help each other in different events that each of us are having or whatever the case may be and talk about real life
Hmm.
because women need women
Yes.
and we
And men need men.
and men need
And
men. They
we are
started
not
in men's
teaching men how to connect with each other.
Mhm.
We're not teaching our men how to build community for themselves, right? The way that men connect is sitting at a bar, having a few
Yeah.
beers, sports, and a lot of sports are very like toxic
Mhm.
masculinity, right?
Mhm.
And then if you're in the opposing team, now you're having a bar fight because the dude's going for the other team. And it's like, well, I thought it was supposed to bring us together.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's like freaking kids sports nowadays,
Yeah. And
they're
even kids
calling the
sports,
police on
yes,
the
the
parents.
parents.
Yes, yeah.
And we take it way too personal, right? And we
Yes.
just take everything way too personal.
Yeah.
And I think that a great book that helped me see things from a different perspective is The Four Agreements,
Yes.
which is don't assume, don't take things personal,
Keep your word.
keep be impeccable with your
Mhm.
words, and always try your best.
Mhm.
And so always try your best at those three. You're not going to be perfect at it, but you have to continue to try your best to put those into practice.
Yep.
And being impeccable with your words is the most difficult part because that means that you also have to be impeccable with the words that you use with yourself because words have power and the words
Yes.
that we use with ourselves matter and our body feels it
Yeah.
because we're emotional beings and we carry our emotions in our body.
Mhm. Well, I think the words that we speak to ourselves are the most important.
Yeah, of
And we don't
course.
even realize it. And if we don't keep the word with ourself, like why would we keep it with anybody
Mhm.
else? I mean, and it
Yeah.
yeah, everything I read says that. Every self-help, it's like you start with your own word with yourself
Yeah.
and then it builds momentum.
And you're your most important and la- l- and your longest lasting relationship. So you want to have a good relationship with yourself.
Yeah, you'd hope so, right? You
Mhm.
spend the most time alone. I always think that too.
You're always with yourself.
Yeah,
You
and
can't get away from
sometimes I
yourself,
know, and I'm like,
even
"Shut
if you want to.
up." I know. I'm like sometimes I think, "How many people are in there?" We're having this whole dialogue, conversation, argument. Like, I don't know. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
questionable. So with your family, let's go there. So we start working on ourselves.
Mhm.
What's the easiest way to start bringing it into our family?
I think it's being able to find a modality that is going to work for you, right? Because there's so many things out there and it's not cookie cutter.
Mhm.
Everybody works differently, everybody views things differently. So it's a modality that is going to work for you. And I know that therapy is still very taboo in within our
Mhm.
community, and although we're talking about it a lot more, and I see a lot more people being open to it, it's not for everyone, right?
Yeah.
At least to start.
And
So
not every therapist is for everyone.
correct. So I always recommend interviewing your therapist,
Yes,
right?
I
Don't just
agree.
think that because they're a therapist, they're
Yeah.
gonna know it all, that there's gonna be
It's
connection.
just like a real
Interview,
estate
yeah,
agent, like a lawyer, like
correct.
yeah, you're not a doctor. You're not just
Hmm.
going to let any doctor do surgery on you.
And not only that, but you may not connect with the the approach of some therapists,
Mhm.
right? So interview therapist, call 3 or 4 at first and see which one you feel like the most connection with or that you feel is gonna, and sometimes you may be like 3 sessions in and you may be like, "Oh, this therapist isn't for me,"
Mhm.
and it's okay.
Yeah.
And you can ask your therapist for 3 referrals, like, "I don't think we're a good match. Do you have 3 referrals of, this is what I'm looking for, of a clinician that may be more to my liking or to my
I
approach?"
love that. So you recommend that. Like
Yeah,
it's
I
okay
offer
to
that.
ask your
In my
to
intake, I
uh-huh.
always say, like, if at any point in our work together, you feel that we are not a good match, let me know and I will give you 3 referrals.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Awesome.
technically we're supposed to offer 3 referrals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that should be part of the interview
Mhm.
process.
Yeah.
How many sessions, do you feel if we're not a match?
I usually say 3,
Okay.
but sometimes you know immediately, right?
Yeah.
Like, sometimes during the intake, you realize, like, yeah, this is not gonna work out.
Yes.
It's kinda like going
Well,
on a
and
date.
I really like them to hear that and to know that because you're already vulnerable when you're going
Mhm.
into therapy. So the last thing you want to do is be sitting there like, how do I get out of this and not,
Yeah,
be comfortable
and,
enough to do
and sometimes you're as a clinician, you're sitting there with the client, you're like, I don't think I can help them. I think this is like out of my scope of practice.
that. Hmm.
So you let them know that, like, hey, I don't think we're a good match. Like, I don't think that I can offer what you're looking for.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna give you 3 referrals. And it's okay for and it's about not taking it personal, right? Like,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think that also says about the integrity of the clinician because they don't want to just take your money. They really want you to get the help that you need.
Hmm. So I want to go back to more examples. You said the women's circles.
Hmm.
Uh,
So there's Círculos, I think, for men and for women, right?
Mhm.
Because we need to start building community for our men too. Because in the work that I do in my practice, I'm seeing that, and as a female, I can speak for myself, right? That oftentimes women don't feel safe. We
Yeah.
don't feel safe out in the world, period.
Mhm.
And who do we not feel safe with?
Yes.
Men,
Mhm.
right? But I'm also finding that a lot of men are not feeling safe.
Mm.
So when men are not feeling safe within other men and
Mhm.
women aren't feeling safe within men or sometimes women, then how do we create safe spaces for each other?
Yes.
How do we build community in places where we feel accepted and safe and
And
that
unjudged.
yeah, yeah.
Unjudged, period.
And so it's uh being able to build that for our communities because
Mhm.
oftentimes we don't have it.
Yeah. It's funny, I was thinking about starting a book club today,
Mhm.
and it's not I I don't know what I'm doing. But it's like everything, right?
None of us do.
Yeah, none of us do, and but if we don't do it, who's gonna do it? And I do see a need, and not only for myself to connect with some old friends, I think it'd be a great way, but I do love to teach and learn, and so it'd be a great way to do it with a community of
Yeah.
women that, I adore and respect, and I feel can use maybe a little structure, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. So if you've never been in a book club or you've never done it, with somebody as fun as me. You
That's
might think
true.
it's boring.
I think I've tried to be part of a book club, and then we never follow through with reading the
Yeah,
book, so then we just
yeah,
end up hanging out.
yeah, I don't know, books and margaritas, and we'll see. We have to make sure we talk about the book the first, 15
The
minutes,
introduction.
the introduction, but yeah, just I do believe it's much needed, and
Mhm.
the more that I do and the more that I'm out and the more that I serve, the more I see the need. Like, I even get emotional because I just feel like there's so many people out there that feel alone,
Yes. And
and they're
and
surrounded by people.
and I can vouch for that, right? Because I hear it in my practice almost daily, and we have an entire generation of adults that find it very difficult to make friends, to
Yeah,
connect,
yeah, they don't
to
know how.
yeah, because we don't provide the spaces for it.
Mhm.
And like I said, and if we do, it's usually like at a bar
Yeah,
or, but how do we create spaces where you just go and have fun
yeah.
and you connect with people?
Mhm.
And it's not about the pressure of like meeting someone or dating, it's just being in community. How do we create those community
I
events?
think that's the problem. I think so many people get into the idea that they have to make I mean, we do, right? You wanna make a connection for a purpose, but the purpose is the wrong purpose that
Hmm.
they wanna make the connection. So, when you have the wrong purpose, you're not making a true connection because you're in your head too much
Hmm.
as
Yeah.
opposed to being, in that moment and having a true conversation, you know?
Yeah, and it's starting within, your own family system. How do you start to connect and interact with your family in a different way?
Yeah. Right?
Okay. This is a safe space.
I know. I need to cry.
And so how do we start to connect within our own families, right? How do we ask how your day is? How
Yeah.
do we connect with our children, right? Because oftentimes parents get home and they're tired and they're exhausted and they have to make dinner or cook or um that is dinner, right?
Yeah.
Or clean and do all these other things. But how do you spend at least 5 minutes connecting with your children, like undivided attention with your children?
We did, and it worked, and I know in today's busy, crazy world, it doesn't, but I think we have to make it a point to
Mhm.
have dinner together.
Yeah.
Even if you make it that 30 minutes, it'll be 30 minutes of quality time, at least, as opposed to nothing at all together, you
And
know?
it's not just sitting at the table, right? It's sitting at the table, eating dinner,
Having a
connecting. Yes.
conversation. Yes, we
Asking about their
couldn't.
day,
Yes.
asking about like what was, and open-ended questions, right?
Mhm.
Not close-ended, not yes and no answer questions.
Mhm.
So, like what was the best part of your day? What was the
The
least
highlight.
yeah,
The
like what did you like least about your day today? Like is there something that you're looking forward to tomorrow? Like things that are really going to spark conversation
Rose and
because
thorn game. Have you ever
oh,
played that
oh, I
game?
haven't.
The rose and thorn. What was the rose of the day? What was your thorn of the
Oh,
day? The good and the bad.
yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
realize it had a name.
Yeah, well, it was a game I learned with the kids at the youth group. But yeah,
Yeah.
but it does. It strikes conversation,
Hmm.
and you have to answer.
And you have to get to know your children because oftentimes, like, I'm an adult and I feel like my parents don't really know me. Like
I know,
my
right?
siblings don't really know who I am, and that's why you find better connections with your chosen family, which
Yeah.
are your friends, because they know you, because
Mhm.
you talk to them about personal things and things that you're going through. And so you share that intimacy with friends and your chosen family that oftentimes we don't have with our given family.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sharing dreams and
Mhm.
desires and goals, and that's the biggest thing a lot of people don't do with their family. And like I was married, my parents didn't even know my last name. I was like, really? I was like, wow. So yeah, it was bad. And then one time I went with my brother. He's like, yeah, she works with kids and they go places. And I'm thinking, I've been working with kids for years now. I've been doing so many things and he had no idea. But yeah, unless we know a lot of other stuff, but
Yeah.
really, like you said, it's the superficial stuff when you
Yeah.
get together and then everybody's there and everybody's talking and nobody's really connecting one on one.
Yeah, and then your kids become teenagers, and then there's less communication, and you really build a foundation of communication with your kids from the time that they're young, right? Like when you're
Mhm.
asking about their day.
Mhm.
And so if you don't keep that line of communication, if you don't start it when they're young, it's definitely not going to happen when they're teenagers.
Right.
And if you want your teen to talk to you, then you need to start talking to them from a much earlier age, not just when they're teenagers. And so, because you need to build that safety that they can come to you about anything, you need to build that trust.
Mhm.
You need to build that respect, because respect is mutual, right? With your
Yeah,
kids, it's
of
not just
course.
because you're the adult they should respect you and you don't respect them.
Mhm.
It's mutual. Like you're modeling to them what respect is.
Yeah. That's huge too, and I think even, we talk about culture, do as I say, not as I do, and,
Hmm.
I'm the parent as long as you live under
Yeah.
this roof, and you forget you're modeling the behavior that you want. Where kids are sponges,
Yeah.
and you could tell them everything you want, but they're gonna do what they see.
And it's giving them autonomy at a young age, right?
Mhm.
Because then they know who they are. They start building that sense of self.
Yeah.
And if we don't allow our children to have that autonomy at a young age, where they get to choose their clothes and they get to choose what they want to eat, or having them choose for themselves, then as they get older, they don't know how to make choices for themselves because
Mhm.
they've been told their entire lives what to eat, what to wear, how to do things, how not to do things, what to say, what not to say.
Which
And
is
so,
huge and
yeah.
ties into connection because that gives them the security and the confidence in order to build connections in the
Hmm.
future, to be able to have a conversation and walk in a room and, speak their mind. I love that.
Yeah, and it allows them connection within themselves, right? Because
Mhm.
then they have a sense of self and
Yeah,
who they are.
right.
And so, like you said, they're a lot more confident when
They're
they
less
step out. Yeah.
vulnerable, yeah, to people manipulating them
Hmm.
because they know who they are. They've been allowed to feel and
Yeah.
know and
And for many of us that didn't
experiment.
have that autonomy, like
Mhm.
we get into adulthood and we start exploring who we are. And a lot of times, we engage in a lot of self-destructive behaviors
Mhm.
because we don't know who we are. We're trying to figure it out. And so
Hanging out with the wrong
yeah,
crowd, the
and
wrong
so
yeah.
oftentimes we also self-medicate, right? Like
Mhm.
we start drinking and we maybe drink a little bit too
Trying to
much,
be
or
cool.
yeah, or other things. You're trying to numb yourself
Yeah.
because
Feeling
you're
maybe.
finally realizing the effect and having that autonomy apart from your family, and you start to see how things are affecting you. And so oftentimes you don't know how to deal or manage, or you have this anxiety because you don't know how to do things for yourself, or
Mhm.
you have been hyper independent your entire life. And so now you're an adult and you have less wiggle room for messing up because consequences are graver now that
Mhm.
you're an adult. And so there's a lot of anxiety that goes with that.
Yeah. I think that's why I love that age so much because I know what it's like. You're not old enough to be an adult, but you're not young enough to be a kid anymore, and you're supposed to know what you wanna do with the rest of your life, and you're figuring yourself out. You don't even
That's
know
what the
who you
teenage years
are.
are, right?
Yeah.
But it can also be a very difficult time because you are in that limbo. Like
Yeah.
certain behaviors, you're like your parents are like, you're not a kid anymore, don't behave that way, or like, you think you can boss yourself around, you're not an adult, don't behave this way. You're like in this limbo trying to figure out who you are and you're seeking peer validation. And that's a lot of times when they start withdrawing from their parents.
Mhm.
And so how keeping that line of communication is important so that they still come to you in
Yes.
difficult moments.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they're out in the world trying to seek that peer validation, but it's also them making good choices for themselves and the people that they do hang out with.
Mhm. And being able to come and discuss that
Mhm.
with you in order for you to kinda
Yeah.
help direct them a little bit
Mhm.
because, yeah, you my nephew, what, he's, I think, 14, maybe 15 now, but he's, 6'3".
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So you have them also getting used to their body and
Yeah.
comfortable, and they look like a man or they look like a young woman, but they're still a
Yeah,
child
they're still
really on the
children.
inside.
Yeah, and oftentimes we shame them, right?
Mm.
Because we make fun because of their height,
Mhm.
or a lot of times girls develop very early on, and so there's a lot of shaming in the body, and we can't control our biology at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of changes that happen, and I feel like in adolescence too, they go through like this level of depression because I don't think we often talk about it, but we we grieve the stages that we grow out of, right?
Yeah.
And so they go through this grief of like I'm no longer a child, like who am I now? And
Mhm.
so I think that that's where sometimes a bit of the depression, the underlying depression comes in.
Yeah.
So it's being able to help them through that transition,
It was
and
an
it happens in when you're turning to a young adult, right? You go
Mhm.
through it as well.
Yes, yes, and, you talked about bringing back, like, women's circles, and you used the word in Spanish. What was
Círculos and pláticas,
Círculos and pláticas. ¿Pláticas? What's pláticas?
talks.
Oh, okay,
It's like
yeah.
a talking circle.
Yes, okay, so we did that for my friend's daughter when she turned 18.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we had a whole ceremony, and we all journaled, and we all circled her, and we all gave her words of wisdom, and, it was amazing because it was so different than, like, a quinceañera. I think we even talked about that before, but it was just beautiful that
Yeah.
we were able to, and she knew that she had all these women now that were there if
Yeah.
she needed to talk.
Yeah. And it takes a village, right? And it takes a
Mhm.
village not just to raise a child, but it takes a village also to support the parents
Yes.
because parenting is
Yeah.
difficult. And oftentimes, a lot of moms get lost in the title mother, and
Mhm.
that's the only identity that they have. But you
Mhm.
are so much more than just a mother.
Yeah.
So, how do we also support moms so that they continue to have that autonomy and continue to have their community behind them and their village?
Which is so sad because that title used to be a grand title, and then it got lost in the shuffle, but it is still such a grand title. To be a mom is I mean, even if you're a stepmom, but to be that person to somebody is huge. Like,
Mhm.
it's huge. I mean, you're raising a little human. I mean, you gave birth to this little human one, and then you're responsible for raising this little human. That's a lot of work and a lot of attention. And if you're a working mom on top of that,
Yeah,
you
but
know?
also, with the title comes great responsibility,
Yes,
right?
it
So
does.
what happens when your mother doesn't fit
The mold.
the molds of what society tells you a mother should be
Yeah.
or how they should
Or
be
what you feel a mother
or the
should
mother
be.
that you need, right?
Mhm.
Because I think that oftentimes we either become the mother that we always wanted or the mother that um, we didn't have, or we become just like our moms. But at the end of the day, you need to be the mother that your child needs. So it's
Yes.
getting to know your child and being attuned with your child so that you are able to be the mother that your child needs and ask, what do you need from me?
Amen.
And we don't often ask children what they
Mhm.
need from their mom. We just, because we're mom, we know what they need,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes we get it wrong and it's
Mhm.
okay. Like that's how we learn.
Yeah. And sometimes we need to get it wrong. Sometimes they need to figure it out and we just need to give them what they need. It took me a long time to figure that out. It really did, but I mean, I have a great relationship with my son now and I'm so grateful, but it's because I grew,
Hmm.
right? I healed. So in turn it was like, okay, now I see and I understand. Like he's his own freaking human.
Hmm.
He makes his own decisions and he's going to have to pay his own consequences and so be it. I can help veer him, but again, he's watching me as well,
Yeah. And
you
they
know?
watch everything you
Yeah.
do.
And it doesn't matter how old they are either.
No. And And when they're little, you're their entire world,
Mhm.
right? So, and the best way to the not the best way, but I think the most effective way of parenting is through modeling because
Yes.
they see everything that you do. And like you said, we were raised in an era where it's like do as I say, not as I
Mhm.
do. And that was a very mixed message for a child, right? Well, why do you get to
Yeah.
do it but not me? And that's why you want to be an adult. Like, well, if they get to do it, that's why I want to
They
be an
have all the
adult.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get to have all the
And then
fun,
you
and we
become an
can
adult, and you're like, oh, this is no fun. I want to be a kid again.
please.
And so, like, the best parenting approach is through modeling.
Yeah.
So, be the person that you want your child to be.
Well, just like they say, if you wanna date this guy who's this, be that.
Mhm.
Be it.
Yeah.
You attract what you give.
Yeah. And
S
so, the best gift that you can give your children is healing yourself because
Yes.
then you are able to be a lot more present for your child. You're able to have a much deeper connection with your child.
Mhm.
And you really do get to enjoy their childhood and heal parts of you that still need healing from your inner child,
Oh my
right?
gosh, my son is
Yes.
still helping me heal. He
Yeah.
is, and it through his son.
Hmm.
He's 4, and sometimes I'll be sure he'll be like, "Let him talk, mom." I'll be like, "Oh, whatever."
Yeah.
But
And
I catch myself, I'm
setting
like, and it
boundaries.
it actually
Yeah.
excites me. It's like, "Oh, like, he's
He's
such
setting
a"
boundaries for his kid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a good dad.
Hmm.
And even my grandson, he's so funny. He likes to smell everything. He's 4, so everything like, he'll smell it, and I told him one time, I'm like, "What are you doing? Like, why do you smell everything?" And he's like, because he's little and he's exploring, and then
Hmm.
I was like, "Oh," and then it clicked like, "Oh my god, like, I coulda just damaged him right now, like, trying,
Yeah.
you know?"
Like he only has 4 years of experience on this
Mhm.
earth. So
Yeah.
yeah, like the entire world is their science experiment.
Yes,
Yeah.
all
And
new.
how do we lead with curiosity for our
Oh
kids,
my
right? Because
gosh.
it's curiosity that really continues to ignite that learning, that ambition for learning and wanting more and just exploring
Yeah,
life. Yeah.
yeah, and the comfort to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah, not thinking you're gonna be weird,
Mhm.
and it was cute because now he has me smelling. What does it smell like? So we
Close
could
your eyes, grandma.
yeah, it's cute, but
But we forget that sometimes,
we
right? We
do.
forget like how to connect with even our own senses.
Mhm.
And if you smell things, you definitely get to experience it from there, from the way that it
Yeah,
smells. And
yeah.
that has a connection.
Well, it's so fun now. It's super cute because now that I know he loves to smell everything, it's like we go walking and we'll smell the flowers, and
Yeah.
I'll get the
Take time to smell the
rosemary.
roses. And
Yes.
again, because it's allowing you to connect and slow down.
Mhm.
And we live in a very fast paced world.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the best for that. They really
Hmm.
are, to be able to be imaginative again
Yeah.
and to
They
slow.
remind you they remind you to get back to basics.
Yeah, and to just enjoy life
Hmm.
and, yeah, run in the sprinklers. See what they say. We'll have a play
It's
date.
splash in the
We'll
rain.
have a play date.
Yeah, and splash in the rain, which is
Mhm.
fun. And
Yes.
oftentimes our parents didn't let us because te vas a enfermar, like you're gonna get sick,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So being able to like now as adult go out into the rain and enjoy it, it's fun. You get to
Yes.
like your inner child comes out and
Yeah.
like how do we continue to practice play?
And you
Because
realize
once
you
we
don't
become
melt.
yeah, and I think especially for women, I think for women it's really important to really connect with play, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel that oftentimes for girls responsibility comes a lot younger, right?
Mhm.
They're responsible for a lot more than boys
Mhm.
are. And we have a term for men for allowing men to still be children, and that's a man child.
Yeah.
There's no term like that for women because
Right.
we're not allowed to continue to be children once we're
Mhm.
adults.
No,
So
because you become a wife and a mother and
yeah, and now the responsibility
mhm.
falls on you, but
Mhm.
now you have a man child as your
Yeah.
partner, right?
And then you have more kids.
And so, as women, how do we connect with our inner child? How do we continue to connect through play?
Mhm.
And our children can help us with that, right?
Yeah.
When we play with them, when we get down to the floor and play
Mhm.
with them, when we really connect with our children in play,
Yeah.
we get to also connect with our inner child, which a lot of us oftentimes didn't because a lot of us get parentified. Or a lot of us have the responsibility because mom is working and so you have
Mhm.
to take care of your younger siblings or
Or
you
the
have to do the
guilt.
chores or the guilt
Yeah, like, "Oh, I
or I
don't
have
have
to clean
time
the
to do that."
house
Yeah.
or I have to cook. And so
Mhm.
usually that's why dad is the fun one because mom is busy with all of the house
Right.
responsibilities. So take time to also play with your children and connect with your inner child and play more.
Yeah. I think that's a good conversation for couples to have too.
Mhm.
They need to realize that they have to have that time. Like she has to have that time. So the house isn't always going to be clean and the dishes aren't always going to be washed. Like
And it's
kids
okay.
acquire a lot of attention.
Yeah.
My grandson comes over, he's 4, like I said, and he wants all my attention just to sit there and watch him play a video game or to, watch a movie with him. They just want you there.
And that's connection. They're trying to
Mhm.
connect.
Yeah.
And sometimes being present without saying anything is connection.
Yes. And yeah, and that'd be the worst to take it away from the little ones so
Mhm.
you can clean the house and the mess will be there later too. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And they'll
they're
be
just gonna mess
older.
it up again.
I
So
know.
engage them, but it's also important to engage your kids in this, right?
Yeah.
Because when you start to engage your kids and being part of the family unit through chores and helping in the cooking and helping in laundry and helping in different things that need to get done, it gives them the sense of community and of
That's actually
belonging.
what I was gonna say when you said we get busy, right? But
Mhm.
they can. We would do that. We would eat together, but we'd also clean together, and
Mhm.
then I'd cook with my mom, and so there. You're still able to do that. During the chores, you just
Mhm.
do it together.
Yeah.
The guys would go
And
outside and do the outside, and we'd stay inside and do the inside.
yeah. And yeah, it might take you a little bit longer when they're young, right?
Hmm.
Because they're learning and you're teaching them, but and this is how you also teach them life skills.
Yeah,
And not just our girls, but our boys too. Our boys need to learn life skills
of course.
because then they expect their partner to do everything for
Hmm.
them. And if you're an adult female that has a partner that can't do anything, that's not what you want to do with your own children, right? Because you want them to also be a partner to their partner,
Yeah. I remember
not a man
one of
child.
my landlords had told me in front of her daughter-in-law, she said, "Oh, I see Jeremiah in the laundry room all the time." We lived in a secure building, so I wasn't nervous or anything. She goes, "I think I did my son a disservice." And the daughter-in-law looks at her, she's all, "You did." I was okay. I did something right.
Yeah.
you know.
And so how do we teach boys these life skills as well?
Mhm.
Because it's not um
It's a team effort.
it yeah, it's not about what is it called? The gender
Oh,
roles?
yeah, no.
It's not a gender role. At the end of the day, it's a life skill.
Mhm.
Men should be able to cook and clean and learn to do their laundry
Yeah, you'd
because
hope
it's a life
so.
skill.
Yes,
Yeah.
jeez. Anyways, I loved our conversation,
Yeah.
Andrea, but I
Thank
think
you.
we
It's
need to
always
wrap
great.
it up. I
Yeah,
know. So we have to touch on something new next time,
for sure.
but it's always good to have you, and I appreciate you coming
Oh,
out.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, so
It's
you
always a
have
great
time
time.
for a margarita now?
Let's do it.
All right, guys, thanks for joining us. It's wonderful having you back, and I hope you got some, good content for yourself and for your families, and hopefully you could move forward and just get a little better connection with your mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, it's time for us to go play.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.